guess in 1979 I had a group of young people, and that was when I had to really try to understand what was going on and to give some ideas to them, to develop them. And it was from this group of people that the sort of the important part of New Zealand rowing success came. I had 10 people, and 8 of those had world or Olympic gold medals in the next years. So that was a time where I really started to focus in, and I guess it was a time when I started to realise that I was a bit more interested in rowing coaching than, well, I don't suppose I wouldn't say teaching at that time, but it was starting to change over really probably. As usual, you go through a sort of an experimental phase, and that was in 1981, where did some strange things, had a crew that looked like it was going to do quite well, but in the end didn't. But that was, I'd say, an experimental phase where trying some strange looking techniques, I suppose. But, and then by 1982, I had a much clearer pattern of what I was trying to do. A lot of this, say, I'd had to basically work in a vacuum up until this point. There were a lot of people to talk to, of course, but didn't really have access to the type of information that we have available now. And also at the end of 1981, Tor Nielsen and Sigmund Storm came to New Zealand, and from that, I think that putting the two things together of the sort of the technical way that I'd managed to get myself into, plus the way they talk about training, that put the two things together, and we started to get some quite good crews at that point. And so I know training's not on the agenda, but I mean training and technique obviously they go hand in hand. You can't just teach people some technical things and think it's going to work out. If they can't do it over a long period of time, then you basically waste their time quite often just teaching people sort of basic things, but not being able to sustain it for any length of any period. So, as I say, from 1982, started to develop a clearer pattern of what was supposed to happen. And I suppose from then on there hasn't really been a great variation in certainly what my crews look like, or certainly in the way I think about how people should row. But there's certainly been quite a lot of refinement. I'll show you some videos in a moment of people from back a bit, and so this has led to a much clearer picture of what I'm trying to produce. And I think that's really important, that you have to have a picture of what you want. You have to have a sort of a movie running through your head that you want your crews to appear like. And so if you haven't got your own picture, you really aren't going to achieve what's possible. If you just sort of taking a bit from somebody else, some picture here and another picture there, another picture there, you're not going to get what you want. Because certainly I'm not standing here and saying the way that I get people to row is the way to row, because there's so many different ways, we know that. There are certain fundamental premises on which you have to work, but if you've been, well, you've seen throughout England, I'm sure, different ways that people row with the type of success that they have. You see at the World Championships, it's really, you don't have to look too far to identify crews that come from Denmark or that come from Italy. Or maybe from Australia, or from, there's a certain pattern that based on the general theme, but there is a pattern that people row from different places. So I think, for me, that's a fundamental idea about rowing, is that you must have your own picture, and you have to paint it if you like. The artist puts up the easel and draws the picture. You have to have yours in your mind, and it has to be there, and then you have to try to get the parts out there in front of you to fit into this pattern that you have in your head. And basically that's how I go about it. When I went to, by the time I decided to stop teaching, which was in 1986, at the end of 1986, I certainly needed this pretty clear picture, because I was going into a country where I didn't have the language option. And my introduction to Swiss rowing was not easy, because I thought I could speak a bit of French, and I certainly couldn't speak any German. And so that became a bit more difficult. So you had then to be able to, through body language and through moving people around and through an interpreter quite often, in the early stages anyway, get people to row in the way that you want them to, but without the ability to be able to communicate in the same language with them. But as I said, there's no one right way, but there has to be a right way for you. And but it's also important, I think, as a group, and I'm finding this in New Zealand right now, that if you have to develop also a national way that you want people to row, and people need to fit into that pattern, but of course can't fit into the pattern unless everybody must have the same sort of idea to go along with it. But unless there is a clear picture, you get people coming to you from all over the place with different ways of rowing, and it doesn't work. I've got the situation in New Zealand at the moment where people are rowing quite differently from one another because there hasn't been sort of a guidance and a direction as to the way people need to row to be, as you like, a New Zealand style. So I'm obviously, and you have to be, a total believer in your way, my way in this case, but I'm certainly not fixed there at that. There's always changes within perhaps a band about this wide. There's changes that go on within there, perhaps expand that a little bit. But you always have to be learning from everyone, not rowing experts, not just rowing experts, but from the rowers themselves, from people you meet in the street, from books you read, and you have to be learning from these things. Otherwise, once you get to the point where you think you know, then it's time to stop. Okay. Yep. Okay. So in the brown, yeah, hanging well off his arms, pretty good leg connection, and getting the hanging point. And this is a bit of a fetish on my part, this hanging from the outside arm, because it's certainly something which isn't happening in certainly in New Zealand at the moment, and certainly isn't happening in some of the people that I saw rowing in Cambridge on Wednesday. So here's a hanging off here again, off this one as well. So this is getting the blade connected onto the feet, through the back, able to lever the boat past the fixed point, if you like, out here. Okay. So I don't coach actually a leg drive off the catch, but I think I coach talk more about a connection at the catch and a drive relative to the speed of the boat. And so there's always a moment in which you can actually pick up the boat. It's not very long in an 8 going fast, and it's a reasonable amount of time in a Cox pair. But the basic thing, just looking at the moment, is getting of this idea of a certain rhythm that is developing. This one a little bit slower around the finish than what perhaps I have people moving at the moment, but there's this pattern of movement of really fitting into the boat, into the way the boat's feeling. And the other thing is that this tied in with this training thing that people went on doing this for kilometre after kilometre or mile after mile. So they got this pattern stuck into their mind if they didn't already have it. Some people had it very, very obviously, like the guy, we won't worry about the shirts now, but the guy that was rowing in 7 obviously got a very, very set pattern in his head, that same as this guy here, and you can probably pick that out quite well amongst where some people haven't got the same sort of feeling as the others, but that's the overall pattern is that. Yeah, just keep it running. Okay, so this is me living on. This is actually part of the crew 94 crew, not sitting where they were sitting, but this is actually one of the best crews that was in New Zealand, went from New Zealand, and didn't do well at the last, finished 4th at the Olympics, which was really disappointing for everybody, because it certainly was the best and probably the fastest crew that's probably coming out of the country. But however, here's some of the idea of this rhythm, of this feeling of the boat glide, and you can sense that from the people, where their concentration is. You know, it's sort of in a outside of the boat in a way. They're just sort of floating within a rhythm that happens to be there, which they've obviously created for themselves. But you know, getting this pattern, this has to come out of the picture that you've got yourself. And just one. There are certain people in this crew that you sense what's going through their mind, or how the boat feeling is being taken through and being experienced and expressed through their faces. Okay, that's right. Okay, so I mean the concentration isn't on where their hands are in the right place or their bodies or whatever. I mean, surely we've had to work through these phases to get people where we want them to be, or where they should be. But basically, it was just finding a nice, easy flowing movement that also made for making a crew that was fast. And this is the method, I think, was one of the best ways that you could actually, you know, just get a crew to row very, very comfortably and relaxed. And I think the rest of the others is pretty similar. Really. It was a few years later, obviously. It's 1990. And I think what you're seeing is as I said before, sort of variations on the same theme of people doing same sort of thing, same sort of same sort of concentration. It's not an intense concentration, but it's a concentration on a boat movement, on feeling of the boat speed, of a timing of the boat, and it's all to do with sort of a self-expression, if you like, of a group of people in an environment. In this case, it's this rowing boat. But I don't think there's very much difference between the way people are working here and the way people were working in the one you saw from 10 or 8 years before that. So, just looking at, for me, rowing's the way to look at rowing is in a pretty simple way, and that is to, just to try to do some basic movements really well, and to keep it as simple as possible. There's really only, for me, there's just the idea of there's the two phases obviously to the stroke, the bit in the water, the bit out, but for me it's just important that you get the right relationship between the one in the water and the one outside, and the one when you're on the slide coming forward again. And so it's maximising the effect in the water and then letting the boat do the rest while you don't disturb it on the recovery. And one of the things that I coach a lot is relaxation. If you look at the hand grip, for example, of this guy here, or all of them, you'll find that their hands are very relaxed in their movements. It's the ability to be poised forward on the front of the slide before the blade is entered in the water, which allows this maximum efficiency of being to pick the boat up at the furthest point at which you can reach, but still being balanced on your feet as you do so. So I don't coach actually a leg drive off the catch, but I think I coach talk more about a connection at the catch and a drive relative to the speed of the boat. And so there's always a moment in which you can actually pick up the boat. It's not very long in an 8 going fast. It's a reasonable amount of time in a Cox pair. But there is a point where you don't have to do anything for a split second, except make sure you're properly connected. And if you do it well enough, and you can do it in slow training, slow rates of you can start to build it through, and you can get it into higher rates. I don't think, and all you have to make sure of is that if you've got relaxation in your arms, you can then make this connection quite easily. quite simply, just by elevating the forearms a little bit, and it puts the blade in the water. So the whole thing for me is based around, as I say, identifying a rhythm for a crew, allowing the boat to run and being really relaxed so that things can be done quite naturally. But then, of course, once you get the, if you can get the catch right, well, then everything else is probably going to follow. That's what I think anyway, that things will follow naturally on from that. We'll just do a little bit more on that. As with anything, I mean, you can look for faults, you'll find them, but look for the, this round and round movement, this control forward, and this just effortless, if you like, part of just making the whole thing into one movement. I try not to talk too much about a catch, because a catch to me is this type of word that tends to almost suggest that it's a sharpness. For me, it's just an earliness of getting in the water, into the movement of what's been going on. Okay. Perhaps too many buildings around to see this one really well, but again, this is the last crew I was coaching in Switzerland, the last rowing crew, and they also were quite good at getting this balance forward and being on their feet and getting their blades in so that they could then accelerate off the right point of the stroke. And so that, yeah, I think they were quite good at that. What I try to have is that, the catch is just as part of the whole movement. It isn't something which is anything different. So for me, it's just part of a whole cycle. It's not something that there is suddenly an accentuation of. It's just a point that you go into as part of a whole natural process. And later, in the second session, I've got some video, just sort of showing you some of the ways in which I try to get people to do that. And just stop on the sky, probably. And just on the next one. Okay, he's missed a bit, but it's not too bad. So he's got his pressure into here. He's hanging off through here, pretty similar to what we saw, 10 years before, really. Same with this guy here, and so that we're looking to get them really hung through. For me, there's a sort of a focal point, centre of gravity point, or whatever you want to call it, about here, where you've got the difference between from the foot stretcher to the back and out to the hands out in this point here. And if you can get people focused into that point, I think you find that it comes out quite well. Also, say with this looseness of the arms, it can be quite easy to make an extraction from the blade. But as soon as you've got somebody cramped onto their handle here, it ends up with the same sort of thing at the finish. So if arms can stay really relaxed, okay, so he's missed it a bit, but at least we can tell from what he's trying to do that what he's aiming to do, and that's I think the key point is that the rower has to have he or she must have this in their mind, must be thinking certain things if they want to bring about this movement. If they're not, if they're going forward and they are trying to row off their shoulders or backs, they're not going to change that until there's that possibility to really think about what they're trying to do. If they don't, they have to unlearn that bit if that's how you want them to row. So they have to have the right idea in their mind when they're coming forward that that's what they're going to do. If they have another idea when they're coming forward, that they're actually going to come forward and then they're going to row like this. For me, I have to change that, but you have to decide what you want to do with yours. But unless they've got the right thought in their mind coming forward to know what they're going to do, they won't do it. They'll do something else. They'll do whatever is in their mind, obviously. So if you see people, and I still, at the moment I've got a lot of people I'm coaching that don't row the way I want them to, And somehow I'm going to have to try and help them to change their minds about what the row stroke's about. Here, it's holding his legs down pretty well. His arms are coming clear of his knees and he's just starting to lift his knees up a little bit, so keep on stretching out ahead of his knees. You can see him developing his pressure in his calves and his muscles here against the foot stretcher who's coming forward, so he's got this ability then to hold himself at that point, put his blade in the water and have a good connection through his legs and back. And you know, he's developing quite a strong stroke through having this right idea in his head, I think. Okay, so you know, he's separating out quite well. He's coming out of here, his blade, getting his hands, keeping them moving. I don't have people move right out till their legs are completely straight. What I'll do is as they're coming out to about here, just let them lift their knees up a little bit, perhaps like this, and that'll transfer the weight onto their feet sooner anyway. And so just as they're coming out of the position here, arms are going out straight over the knees, and then just lift the knee a little bit, and that puts the pressure straight down on the feet. And from that point on, you can control the slide forward at whatever speed you want. So that's something that I get people to do that doesn't, especially if you've got people with tight hamstrings and things, or doesn't really help if they're trying to really hold their legs down for a long time, and it's not going to help them to get over into the position they need to. We just keep that running a little bit. The other thing I like about these guys is they can there's lightweight guys obviously, that they can really accelerate the stroke off, but that's because they've got, you know, a good bit of water connected onto their, and they haven't allowed their bodies to get too far away from the catch in terms of returning down the slide before so they've lost too much before they can actually move the boat off with their legs at the right timing point. And I say there's definite timing points for definite boat speeds, for different types of boats and different types of speed that you're trying to go in the boat. And it's trying to get people to recognise when the point is that they have to apply the maximum acceleration. That's a key as to, you know, which crews are going to go a bit quicker than others in a technical sense. Obviously there's other aspects that come into things, but in this moment anyway, talking about technical things. There's a bit of video. I was just taken a couple of days before a boat race last year. So it's not quite as slow as, but this is just sort of steady state paddling type rowing. Same sort of thing, it's sort of, you know, there's a different rhythm about it, there's a different recovery time that people are looking for, and there's a definite relaxation that I think is really important. I don't know if you can pick it, but there's one person that hasn't really got the same rhythm as the other people, and as far as in his mind, and he's in two-seat actually. And I don't know if you see if you should probably be able to notice it anyway, that even though he's rowing in the same, just push it on a bit until we get it back onto it. Okay. Everybody else has sort of got this, I mean for me anyway, got the sort of the facial expression, the feeling as the one you saw with a bit of music to it before. That there is a certain thing that they are identifying with their boat movement, and it's not being forced. It's just something that is coming naturally out of the group and out of the boat speed. Some of the things that I said before, that I think what I'm coaching now is pretty similar to before, but there have been refinements. If we have a look again sometime with the tape of the 1984 guys, there's lots and lots of water coming up shafts and that type of thing. And here, blades are really clean. And I think that's something that's really that's improved with in the refining of the technique that I've tried to get people to do. As you can see, certainly not holding on to some of the connecting points, especially with the stroke. But we'll look at that one tomorrow about other attributes of people in certain places in boats. Whereas I think you'll see a lot of them, most of the other people have got pretty good connecting up onto their feet and then pushing the boat away against the resistance. But again, it's this round and round movement that's important, I think. Especially if you've got young crews. If they keep moving in this compact, easygoing moving around, you'll find they go pretty fast. I've seen some really quick girls' crews where, because there's not the sort of, I guess, the idea they have to be muscle the thing along. I think if you can get girls especially just moving in a really easy movement and that you'll find you can get some really fast crews with them. And as you get stronger, well, okay, they'll get faster. But basically, this movement, yeah, maybe you can see here now. Okay, he's a bit cramped, but he's got the idea of the rhythm of the boat with him, and he hasn't really quite got the rhythm of the boat with him. He's sort of here and he's running there, and then he's in, but it hasn't got the fluidity of some of the others. This guy here is really sort of just tracking the boat down. He knows when the spot is, knows where the timing is, knows the point where he's going to take it. Sort of basically that, isn't it? I mean, using one's weight to move the boat, and okay, some people are not as heavy as others, but if you can attach your body weight to the end of your handle, suspend it between your foot stretcher and your blade, and move that in the most efficient way. That's as fast as you're going to be able to go. The movements must be performed as easily and naturally as possible. I think that's a really important point that I hope is being presented on the videos that I've just shown you. And the other thing, of course, is for us to realise a few roads have got their power in exactly the same way. But what we have to try and do is maximise different body shapes that we have in boats. Not everybody's got the same length of legs, arms and shoulders, back leg. But basically the first 2 points anyway, use your body weight to move the boat and perform the movements as easy and naturally as possible. I think that these are things that we should take on board. The same sort of vein. Shove the boat, don't shovel water. You want the boat to move, and I know you can't have the water just not moving, but I mean, if you have in your mind that you want to actually move the boat along and not to move the blade through the water, that's from my point of view. I mean, I know there are other people who think differently, but that's I know all I'm doing is presenting a point of view here. It's not. I'm not saying this is how people should row. Using the solid resistance, lever the boat ahead with accelerating thrust. So again, there's a little article from somebody in here about using finding the post. I think it's called. I've used the same analogy as you probably have as well. Just sort of setting might talk more about sort of the little peg in the water and just hooking your blade in behind the peg each time, and then levering yourself against the peg as you go down. So if you can imagine that the river or the lake or whatever's just got a series of little pegs sticking up, and you hook your oar in behind it each time and move your boat away. Lever the boat ahead with accelerating thrust of the legs and back and arms, and just ensure that the boat holds its water all the way through the drive. And again, that's just by being quite a lot of people are not very patient about finishing their stroke off. They want to have it really powerful and out as fast as they can. Most of the time I'm telling people to let their blade stay in the water as long as possible. I don't mean to say let it stay in so that it doesn't have any pressure on it, but with as much pressure on as possible for as long as possible in the water, and then once you release it, you've got your maximum amount of boat speed. Following on that one, that's really the same point, I suppose. But based on constant acceleration from the time the blade is correctly buried to the catch right the way through the finishing action. So, the acceleration in a smaller boat is obviously it's constant in anything, but it's a slower constancy of acceleration in one boat than, let's say, the faster boat and the faster speed that you kind of work. Okay, so from there, just as I said before, when I started to talk about and I hope that's come through from the videos that I've just shown you there, the basis for my rowing stroke, the way I try to teach people anyway, is the rhythm of the total movement, the rhythm of the timing points. The rhythm is not just on the way forward, but the rhythm is developed most of the rhythm comes out of the way it's developed through the water. And so if everybody's got the same timing points that they're going to accelerate their legs, they're going to draw their arms, that creates time, that creates the boat speed, and also develops into the rhythm on the recovery. If you haven't got you need a timing of the blade, not just the catch I'm talking about the timing of the actual point in which you have to accelerate the blade. So if you've got that, if everybody knows that the blade's in and that's the point, I've got to push it, push the boat away from the blade, if you like, then everybody's thinking in the same timing point. So they've got a point where they actually push the boat, they've got a push, then they've got then they recognise when exactly the right point is when they must pick the boat up again. So one other thing I probably don't coach very much is sort of following the stroke as, or the 7, or if you're rowing an 8, or 3 or 4 if you're rowing a 4, following them for timing. For me, it's everybody has to have the timing for themselves, and so if everybody's, I use the boat example as the stroke, or the boat for the timing. So people time themselves to the boat itself rather than to a person in the boat. For me, if you're watching someone, it's pretty hard for you to be on time with them, because they're going to come to a certain point and suddenly they've gone. So you have to be able to, if you people can time themselves to the movement of the boat, then they'll be in time with each other. And then all you have to do is then isolate the person who hasn't got this ability to do that, and then you have to help him or her out to try and do. But I think if you actually set people to try to find out, how, knowing when the point at which the boat's going to be needed to be picked up again, and do that automatically themselves without having to focus in on somebody further down the boat, I think you'll find that things don't work out too badly. I don't know if people have tried it or not, but that's how I try to get people not to. It also means that the person like the stroke or the 7 or the 3 doesn't have some sort of importance attached to them that isn't actually isn't the way it should be. These timing points is, you need to be able to enter without stopping. The slide stops at the finish, but it doesn't stop anywhere else. So that basically, for me, you've got your slide stopping at the finish, moving forward to the catch, moving back to the finish, and stopping again. And try to get people to think in the opposite for their handle, that they actually move the handle, they put the handle in the water, and then the handle doesn't stop again until it goes back in the water again. So thinking basically of a stop point of the slide at the back of the slide, and the stop point of the handle at the catch again. So these are two stop points. That doesn't mean to say the movement stops, and certainly what's going on in your head doesn't stop. But if you can actually say, right, getting people to put the blade in the water and just sort of forget about it, in other words, that's finished, that bit's finished now, and you just drop the blade into the water and you start to push when you start your movement, pushing with your legs and carrying. Then the point when you actually need to bring the handle, it's already starting because of the way you've used your body. So for me, it's return the hand movement stops with the blade back in the water again, and I think that's something that can also be quite useful as far as getting people to think of an idea through. So yeah, entering without stopping, beginning the power phase without stopping, and accelerating the leg drive and the upper body at the right moment. I know you can't expect everybody to get these things right all at once, but I think if if you allow people to develop naturally, you've got a good chance that it will develop in the right way. The other thing I've talked about here is feeling, which is similar to rhythm, but it's a little bit more. It's something to do with sort of sensitivity, I suppose. And okay, most people that we're dealing with here, I suppose you'd say, well, they are international, but there's no reason why you can't have people at the other end of the scale not being sensitive and moving in boats in a way that yeah, it becomes a sort of an artistic form, if you like. I mean, it's certainly not like gymnastics, but it can be a nice form of movement. And I think if people can recognise that it's not just a way in which you do exercise A followed by B followed by C followed by D. I mean, you just make a movement, a continual round movement, and you slot the various timing points into it. And then this relaxation and concentration thing of having the both things going on at once. And perhaps just to, from read out of here, which is one of the reasons I sort of like the book. This is about, the inner game, obviously, but the player of the inner game comes to value the art of relaxed concentration above all other skills. He discovers a true basis for self-confidence, and he learns that the secret to winning any game lies in not trying too hard. He aims at the kind of spontaneous performances which occur only when the mind is calm and seems at one with the body, which finds its own surprising ways to surpass its own limits again and again. Moreover, while overcoming the common hang-ups for competition, the player of the inner game uncovers a will to win which unlocks all his energy and which is never discouraged by losing. Well, I don't know about the last bit, but the idea that the idea of relaxed concentration. I think that's one way in which you can get people to row in a way in this sort of easygoing movement, and still, and lead to having fast boats because of the relaxation that occurs. The focal point for me is what you do with the legs, and this is also pretty useful when you're dealing with people who are not so strong, because normally their legs are certainly going to be stronger than any other part of their body in their early development. And so, it's actually, you can see people, obviously you can make crews fast as long as you've got a good leg drive. And if the rest of the part of their physical development isn't so strong at that point, you'll still find you've got a fast crew if they're using their legs correctly. And as I say, they can also, you have to emphasise that, but I mean in relation, as I said, in the acquisition of the overall skill of the movement. But I mean the rowing part has to be, for me, it has to be worked around the leg push. And so it's not, for me, as I said before, it's not a leg drive, it's not an immediate sort of smash up a foot stretcher. There's a point in which you have a connection before a push, and that point it's pretty short in some cases, but quite long in others. And that's the second point there, that in the early stages, this is in the early stages of the drive, it's more important that legs are applied in the correct way rather than the hardest way. Hardest meaning firmest or sharpest or whatever else word you want to use. And legs then obviously lock into the back, and then you can then have this hanging action that people talk about a lot. These are just some points that I've got on these sheets, and maybe you can just, if you want to have a look at them. Emphasising again at the beginning of the stroke, leading to the good finish. If the beginning is correct, the rest of the stroke follows naturally. I've mentioned that before. Back and legs starting together in terms of how, I mean, it's slightly different movements. And the back is held, the legs are working. So but one is linked into the other, obviously. But for me, it needs to be that the thought is on the legs, the actual sort of focal point of where the pressure comes is into the back. Pretty obvious points, these other ones. The arms starting bending as the handle's coming through over the knees. But before that, people have to make sure that they keep the pressure in the handle through to that point. There's no point in just putting the blade in, pushing the legs out, and then, okay, oh yeah, I've got to start bend my arms and the handle comes over my knees. So I have to have the pressure in the hands the whole time. And so for some people that means actually pulling a little bit earlier than what they think. And there must be pressure felt through the fingers through the whole time as the same way as they felt through the back. And so you know what sort of pressure you're expending off the foot stretcher through your back, and you can feel what's going on in the water through your hands, obviously. And so if you can't feel something through your hands once you've got your legs started, then you've got to do something about it. You've got to keep your back drawing or keep your arms drawing, but you must keep the pressure in the hands. Otherwise, all you end up is a sort of a two-part type stroke, catching up with hands rather than holding on with what's been developed already. Hopefully these sort of things you've seen from the video, that most of the crews that you've been watching there, okay, they haven't been racing, but we'll show you some. I've got a couple of racing ones we can have a look at later. There's no need to be violent. It's timing. We've been talking about timing quite a lot here, of actually just timing the right point in which you slot the blade into the water. Quite a lot of this we have. The blade shouldn't start moving sternwards in the air when it should be in the water. So for me, it's just let the blade go into the water. Don't even worry if you think it's the wrong time or the right time or whatever time, but just make sure as you're coming forward that you set the blade in the water. And I've quite often say to people, just let it do whatever it wants to do. Don't even worry about it. Just put it in there, and if you let it do what it wants, you'll probably find that it's going to do the right thing. I mean, it hasn't got a brain anyway, has it? I mean, it's a piece of carbon fibre. So you just put it there, and you start to make the movement, and then the blade's going to come. And this is quite the thing we always quite often see, isn't it, with our crews? They come back here, whoops, and then they come back into here before they make the catch point. And so it's really important that that the blade is ready. I don't say you've got to square it up halfway down the slide, but you need to be squaring it on the way to the catch. And if you're really good, okay, that can be from here to here. If you're not quite that good, okay, maybe it starts from here to here. But it's only a matter of just having your hand and wrist really relaxed so you can just slot the blade forward and hold on to it, just more or less like I'm holding the pencil there, really. And from that point on, you'll be ready to receive the pressure. Getting the hump of water in front of the blade, locking the blade at the point of entry, which we just mentioned, and feeling for the pressure point before starting to work against the water. And as I said, that might only take just that long sometimes, but there is a time when you just getting the feeling first. Just basically the last bit here is just. But after the sliding forward, relaxed, but precisely controlled. And for me, the control comes off having the pressure on your feet. Once you put the pressure on your feet, you can control anything really. I mean, once you move your body forward and the weight's there, then I can bring my leg forward or as slow or as fast as I want to. But if I don't get the weight on my feet, then I've got no chance of controlling the movement forward. So I've really got to get my handle back and around and my weight on my feet. So then my handle keeps on going, whatever, in a relaxed manner, keeps going forward, and the timing of this handle to the water is then controlled from the legs. So the focus for me always has to be, or for the crews, is that as they're coming out, the sooner they can be focusing back on their feet again, whether that means looking at them. Sometimes it helps people. They're really looking at something that's where they're focusing. But the idea being that you must be back on your feet, and then you've already got your connection ready. So all you have to do then is roll forward and drop your blade, you're already connected and you're on. So the whole thing is just a real steady movement. Yeah. Certainly when I just went back to New Zealand, everybody's rushing up and down the slides, and tried to slow those down. But basically, try to get people to make use of the time when you're coming forward to make the boat go fast. probably should have been inside the manual, but we can organise something afterwards. So this was basically how I was asked one day to write a page of putting things on in terms of rowing technique. So I've basically just, and I would have changed some of these now. I did these a couple of years ago, and I think there's some things that need to be changed or refined in it. But however, I mean, I haven't done that on this page. But just put these things together. And in fact, when I went to, I think when I went to Cambridge at the start of last year, yeah, well, everybody got one of these. That was all as far as the rowing technique went, and the video that I had that you saw with the music. There's a couple of other bits on that as well that we'll be looking at. But yeah, they just looked at they used to watch the video, and we had these set of notes here, and we tried to organise people into this way. So, you know, basically looking at this. So I haven't sort of talked about a catch here. I've talked about more this as I've sort of the feet connection or the foot connection or whatever. So trying to just get away from the idea of the catch and trying to get the idea that actually you know, you take hold of the water with your feet rather than take hold of it with your hands. And I think this was one thing that I know, for example, Torsten and Peter had quite a lot of trouble with last year, that this was sort of a possibility. And by the end of the time, after about three or 4 months into the time, they started to realise that it was a possibility, and you didn't quite have to shoulder the blade and grab at the water. As you saw in the video, one of them still doing it a little bit, still doing some of the old faults. But what happened was there was a recognition that this was possible, and whereas they didn't think it was a few months before. And so, you know, basically, for me, there's a point in time, if you like, where you can stop everything. And so, you know, there is a point when, if you time things properly with, let's say, two moving forces. I'm not a physicist either, but if you've got two moving forces, one with the water, and the other one with your own movement. For me, I can sort of rationalise, probably not the right word, but anyway, that there's actually a stop point that you can actually sort of slide into. It's sort of like a moment in time where there's a gap for you to slide into. And I guess Peter would say, well, you know, if I do that, the blade just can get whipped out of my hand. And so I just try to keep on with the idea that, you know, there was with the exactly right timing, that the moment that you had the blade here and you had pressure there, you created this, if you like, this sort of a stop point in time. But it was only lasted that long, so you had to be in it at that point. But if you could be, then the whole movement just started off naturally from your feet through your body and away again. And so that enabled a lot more emphasis to be made on the body and the arm draw through the latter part or the middle part of the stroke, because it hadn't been used up at the first part, catching hold of the water. It was able to be caught up from the water, from the feet, and then utilised through the second part or the part that needed it, with much of the arm and the shoulder and back draw as you wanted. Right, about here, okay? So this bit here is it's just a bit of paddling to start with, but you can also always see it's still in this movement of, yeah, I mean, some's talking, some's getting stuff out of their nose and a few other things, but it's just, you know, they're just coming up, oh, there's the point, well, away we go again, and you know, there's just a complete sort of natural point in which they are all just sort of entering in the water, even though they're doing a few other things at the moment. This is at the end of a 20-minute piece, so I'll start up another one in a minute, or in a moment. But and so then once they start, you know, the whole time the stern's not stopping. It's just this ability just to come on, pick up the boat. I say this is a key area that I'm looking at. Some people maybe watch the bow, but I'm always watching on here to see how well crews are actually getting their timing. And so from this point, shortly they just sort of start to get up and get going again. But all the time they've been paddling, the blade just, or this waiting time, the blade's just been entering the water in this rhythm. Okay, so they're off, start to move off again. Okay, so here's this, say this complete running on all the time here, and just picking the boat up and moving it off. In the same sort of rhythm as was with the one with a bit of music. It's just stepped up to, I don't know what the rating is, but it's just stepped up a bit and yeah. Okay, so it's sort of a loping rhythm that you just get out of the acceleration and then the maximum sort of time you can get yourself on the slide. And say some people are doing it better than others, but the overall impression is that that's how the boat's moving. But the overall impression is that that's how the boat's moving. Some people are more of a key to the thing than, for example, Mike. In this case, he's rowing up to his shoulders at the moment. And some of them are much more of a key to what's really going on. But there is this continual movement in. Okay, so his leg drive, for example, better than his, and that he's on the boat and he's already kicked off it, and then he hasn't got the last bit of acceleration. But I say this rhythmical relaxation that allows you to just propel the boat along with the timing of the whole crew into a certain movement that's being developed here. I don't think there's anything too much there. That one thing I've written here that, as far as rowing, I've talked about the body weight distributed between the feet and the seat. I think now I'm talking more about just having the body weight on the feet rather than sort of half and half body and on the seat and on the feet. I don't know what the weight would be if you measured it, but I'd be looking to have people more with their weight on their feet. But I do get people to bring a little bit of weight so they can balance off each other coming forward. I looked at a pair example as a big single scull. If you're rowing a single scull, if you took your outside hand off and you put it on the end of the scull here, you did on the other side, you're not actually just sort of down the middle of the boat. You actually got to get yourself out. So I have people balancing off each other. So down 2, for example, through to 3, 3 to 4. So there's a little bit of weight on the inside of their body and a little bit of inside on the other person. So that then allows for an easier movement out to the side. Rather than stretch down the boat, which can be quite tight, people actually sort of stretch out sideways and look to be out basically over the top of their rigger rather than stretching down the middle of the boat. So there's a bit more naturalness of movement out over to the rigger. But then, of course, once you do that, you've got to make sure that people don't stay down the rigger on the way back again, because they need to put the blade in the water and then hang to their outside if they're on the stroke side, hang back onto the outside, and then the body will come back down the centre of the boat again, basically. Yeah, explanation of that, this point here. I wasn't, didn't understand quite as well as, or do quite as well as I thought I was doing with putting things in practice, because on the guessing it was really easy to do seemed to be really easy to do what I was suggesting people should do. But on the concept, I used to think there was something wrong with it around the front because I couldn't sort of do it, obviously. Do the same thing as I did with the guessing. I did because of this sort of loose chain and everything. Well, that meant I couldn't actually sort of do the connection the way that I thought was possible. But after a while, I think it's also possible also possible to do the things that we've been talking about on the concept. But I see a lot of people, especially in the last while since I've been in New Zealand, who haven't been picking up the concept with their feet the same way as they're trying to pick up the boat. You know, I see a lot of people having to catch it here in their arms to be able to get hold of the machine. So what I've got to sort of try and do here is just sort of demonstrate some of the ways that perhaps go through with an erg to get things in a way that is relaxing and does come up with the right end result, I think. So, you know, for a start, I mean, you actually can just have people just rowing with their feet on the floor, for example. I mean, you don't have to row get everything buckled into here. You just, you know, there, and then you can just get people just into the idea that all you got to do is move your legs forward and move your legs back, and you've got a connection. So, you know, that type of system is quite good starting with, and that you know, people are then, you know, between the pressure on their foot here and their back, they're then just able to get connected through the handle, and they're not connecting through here. They just got their arms really loose with this sort of pencil grip that I talked about before. The handle supported, not sort of here, but just supported by being loose and not putting pressure on it, and basically just thinking about moving the seat forward and back, and just allowing the handle to, you know, to lift up as at this point here, just allowing to lift off, and at the same time just moving off with the feet. So you know, once people have got that, you just put one foot in and start to do the same thing. That way, oops, I don't know how long this is going to last. But once a day, I won't sort of go too far forward. I'll mess my back up a bit. So you can use this leg then as a bit of support to make sure that you're able to balance or keep this one coming forward. So people can then just still do the same, just lifting up the handle, and then the leg is connected up, ready to push off. Okay, so do one side, do the other side, and then once you get that going, then they can start to get the whole thing. I'll have to tighten this up more than usual. Then they can get this feeling of just coming up and being connected through the handle. Just lift the handle up, a little bit of movement backwards, puts the pressure between, well, the connection between here and here, which allows the legs even to the pressure still through your feet, but your legs are then able to do this push off that I've been talking about when you want it to. So it's this sort of thing. Not the best shoes to have on here to have. Okay, so you get this hands coming up and just connecting with this loose hand up to this area, not up in here, not tight, and you can start to connect onto the machine. The pressure's firmly here. So normally I row somewhere there, but so I've got a bit of that problem at the moment, so I'll only be rowing about half slides. But you know, you're still connected at that point, and you get this hanging through here to here. You feel it through here, you feel it through there, and you've got it. If you think about it, yep, I can feel it on the feet. But I'm not going to be thinking about all those points at once. But I'll just check them out. Yeah, it's on my feet. Now I want to see, and I know, yeah, it's in my fingers. I'm not pulling with my hands, but I know the pressure's in my fingers. I want to think about it. Yep, it's in my back. So you can isolate these points, but I don't. For me, sometimes people say, "Have you got it on your feet?" And I have to think about it the next stroke because I might have been realising it was in my back or my hands or something. So, and then once I've got that working, then I can start to think about, you know, by listening to the machine, I've got some idea when I should give it a good push. So each time the leg drive. So the timing the legs, they already were connected, it was just a matter of timing them to, in this case the machine, the same way as I time them to the water normally if I was rowing. So it's getting that, and then once the legs are working there, then my back's just going to continue with the pressure. Okay, so once I get that on, then I'm going to start to go between, as my legs are going to go down, I'm going to be starting to sort of claw at the handle. And that thing that Dan was talking about before, getting the back fixed, drawing the handle through. And this is not taking the hands here, just actually allowing the handle to come back naturally, as it will, because it's just attached on the end of here, and as soon as I'm doing a little bit of movement here, I'm not sort of pulling at it, just there, and just by drawing through from this point here rather than through the wrist point here, if I just let my arm out and then pull my elbow back, then the handle's going to come with me. So I use, if you like, something ahead of the handle to make it move. Instead of using the bit that's attached to it, I try to use the bit before that. So I'm using the elbow and the bicep, for example, to pull the handle rather than the hand itself. So I'm just drawing. It's a slower draw, but it ends up being an accelerated draw. Okay. Then once I want to get my back in, I'll just extend the handle out and start. And I'm only going to do it a little bit here, but I'll start with my back. So I haven't started to pull with my arms or my shoulders. It's getting my back in here. So once I've got my back on, then I can just pull the handle through. Okay, so from there, if I can go up and just fit on my feet, really find that I can find and put my feet at this point here. So I find it with my feet, keep coming my back. Build up by leaving my arms hanging and develop through my legs and back, so that this becomes a sort of logical progression of acceleration, if you like. And if I was, say, normal, flexibility wise today, then I'd just go up and slot this into the right by the cage there and carry on out again. But haven't got that flexibility today. Some ways that you can actually sort of get to manoeuvre the handle so that you have got it loose and you have got it relaxed. You can row, I'm sure you do anyway, but if you get people to sort of row quite relaxed, they can rotate their handle around, for example. You can come up, take one here at the inside of it and roll it over the top. Maybe two here, put one out underneath. Maybe one over the top, one underneath. Maybe change it around the other side. Just roll with a couple of fingers, maybe one finger, put a couple on. So once people get the idea that this, they can actually put this to here just by using this as a connection, then you haven't got this catch where people come out here and sort of going, oh, gee, and catch the earth. So just rolling up and catch. The bit you're going to do like this, you just do it here, or through your legs on your back, and just connect up into here. One way you can actually do that, get your back connection. Sometimes I'll get people, I'll put a weight belt or something around here, so they don't even have to have their arms, but you can hold it here and just get them to go up and back like this, so then they can see it. It's their back that's connected in, legs pushing out. Then just say, okay, extend your arms out, even here for example, and do the same thing. So extend them right out, but just do the same thing as you're doing when you got them here. So it's just that sort of idea. Put it there, do the same thing. Okay, so yeah, you can just isolate by do certain things by using, say, other systems of tying this into here or whatever, however you want to do it. But so you can get your back isolated onto the machine, and it'll help you quite a lot to find the strokes. And to get your arms and back really relaxed. Another way, you can just sort of put your arms here, around here, and then you can really feel your hanging. Feel yourself hanging in the back. You know, you feel the connection around this area. So basically for me, I think I read something from ARA once, who was an American coach, and about sort of taking a chainsaw and cutting yourself off from about here, and then you're about right for rowing. So you think about using this section through here rather than this bit around here. You know? Those are some sort of basic things that you can do. You can use the rhythm or the noise of the machine to help you to so you're just arriving really at the last moment. Pick it up and say I'm only on a short slide here, so. To go again. Okay, so there's a time that I may as well make the most of the machine before I need to do it again. Okay, I mean there are times with workouts where you want to rate at certain speeds, and you can still do the same thing. It doesn't mean to say you've got to rush just to go higher rate. So there's some of the things that you can do. I'm not an advertiser for concept, but for me personally, I find that their new model is really useful, especially not very strong. So I can put it down at number 1 or number 2. It's really good. I think the way they're developing this is pretty good. So that gives you a more of a range of where you want people to work from. So, and then you can sort of work out, if you've got somebody 13-year-old and they're only strong enough to do it on level 2, then you do the same. But basically, if you get this feeling of really just hanging off it, being patient, just knowing that there's a point where you need to just draw the handle through. This is just a video that, I just basically we don't normally do too much of this sort of thing, but in terms of this was a special sort of a time, so I better make a bit of video of what's going on here. So this was this idea of being balanced, being approaching, and getting the feeling that they can balance forward and balance back on the way forward, so that then they're totally in control of the situation. Especially when he's on his own. I mean, it's going to be not so good with a pair, but you can do it in a forward 2 people, obviously. But here, and then he's just, as he's approaching the front, just slipping the blade to the water. Just happened to be the 2 people available at the time, but he's just lifting this handle and just connecting up to his feet. So these are just a few exercises that started from this sort of the roll up and put in. Okay, so he's able to be there at that point. And So now they're trying to do it together, but he'll try to maintain that with the two guys working. So now he has to adjust obviously to a bit of an imbalance problem plus the speed of the boat now. But he's trying now to get the same thing as he's coming forward and getting himself placed. So this is this other one working from the other end of the stroke, just making sure that everything's fixed firmly at the finish and drawing with the arms to that point. I mean, you've probably all done them before anyway, but here's a bit of video. He was certainly one who used to row like this. He'd pull his arm like this, and so what I'm trying to get him to do here is just put the blade and try to. He's not really doing it as well as he should be, but however, putting the blade in and leaving it there a moment till he can just pull with his elbows through, more forearms and elbows. But you've got to be quite well coordinated to do that. But that was a bit better, that last one where he just tried to hold it and before he pulled it, or try to let it go with the movement, and then just draw it after it's already made its own contact, basically. So it's just, again, trying to set the blade and work as I was trying to work over on the erg there, just starting it with the back a bit, seeing what sort of back was there. Now I was let him come up now and onto his legs and hopefully carry on with this, because his problem was more of the finish. He was sort of finishing himself here and now he's a bit more free, just here and back and around and out again. And he's able to get up on his feet, he's able to keep his legs there at that last moment to make that entry he was trying to anyway. Right, so he gets up, stays there, gets in. He won't be able to do as well in the pair, but he's got full possibilities with his leg drive. Okay, so here's trying to get them to hang off their inside arm and wait for the pressure. That pressure we were talking about before, just be waiting for it, and then it's coming, and then they can work their legs off and draw their arms through. So now they're not pulling it, not trying to pull their arm like this at the start, just trying to leave it there. As you can see, there are a few problems with the balance, but they're trying to leave the arm and then just accelerate it through. I think it was good to read, and I think it was Mike Sprackman's about the leverage you can get on there, that you must get from your inside arm in the second half of the stroke, not pulling around on the outside. The leverage quotient or whatever, portion, whatever, changes as you're coming through the stroke. You've got more out here, but at a certain point you've then got more on the inside. So coming towards in the second part, you'd be drawing the inside arm compression with pressure in both hands, but there's a change of emphasis from the outside, if I was on the stroke side, to the inside as I'm finishing. And that gives you that leverage, and also I can get people to actually sit there and really pull their shoulder back, rotate it around as an exercise. You can actually rotate the shoulder around and then pull the handle through. So you get that inside arm working the finish better. Here, he's not really getting this as well as he should, but here was just an idea of placing the blade out with the outside hand and trying to hold it there. That was a better one. What I'll do sometimes, have the other person just turn around and try to pull the handle forward as he's coming forward. While he's sitting there, just try to guide his handle out so that it keeps going out while he starts this movement in the other direction. This is again, there's a point on there where they're doing some exercise as well, so we'll just find it in a minute. Yeah, it's just a little bit of this, and then it changes a couple of exercises on it. So we just let it run through, it's the same sort of thing as before. these are at different times, obviously, that these guys are training. And but I think you'll see the similarity between what they're doing and what all the other boats have been doing, all the other people in boats have been doing. And I think that's the main message, I guess, is that you have, there's actually a sort of a trademark that you put on your boats. They shouldn't be very much different from anybody else, and there's no point in having a trademark if it's a slow boat. But but you want one that you really want a national type situation where British crews look like this. But then you've got one that you can see, well, there's a little bit of you in that one, a bit of Steve in this one, a bit of somebody else in that one. But basically there should be a system that says, this is what we're going to, overall, how we're going to look. And as long, it has to be something, obviously, in my case, the head coach can say, look, this really works, let's if you've got any better ideas, if you haven't, let's do this. Or I say, well, yeah, okay, I want to listen to what you got to say, but it's going to have to be a pretty good argument because we've had quite a lot of success with these other things. But there has to be something that you really believe and that you can coach. And I didn't row like this because I didn't get coached much when I was, I guess, but also rowed a lot with, it was upper body rowing, a lot of it. But now whenever I go rowing, I row the way of a coach. And I think that's important too, that if you're a coach, that you don't, when you step in a boat, you just think, well, I never learned that. Because you're teaching all the time, everything you're saying to other people must be going through yourself. And so when you step in a boat, now you would automatically row, as far as I'm concerned, the way that you're coaching people, not the way maybe you learned to row. And so it's really important that you can actually make the change. It also helps your coaching a lot more if you can actually, if you're really doing what you're saying when you go out and row. So for example, I have no qualms about going out and rowing with anybody. It's just something I expect that I can do. Okay, so I mean, guys are working on things, and not all. But for me, I mean, I know this how well he works and how well he doesn't work. For me, this is a pretty good. He's rowing really well here for him because he is getting himself pretty well connected at the front, and he is able to accelerate the boat. This guy here is not quite on it because he's sort of a bit slow, and he's not quite getting his body weight. He's sort of on his seat rather than getting his body weight back on his feet. But this is just some days people are doing better things than others. But he was always pretty complicated. In fact, he only rowed for. I mean, he was Sculler, who changed to rowing, and because he's really tall. I mean, he's 2 metres tall, and sort of few problems with coordination. But basically didn't really know too many rowing positions, which is not a bad thing anyway. But he had a lot of problems getting because he rowed sort of with his arms and shoulders like this, and then he'd sort of pull out like this. This was the year before, and he'd sort of come out of here and go out to there. But so it's here. I was just trying to get him to relax here, and then also, as I said to you before, he was a bit slow. Just trying to get him to go into the water. So do quite a few exercises going in the water, just dropping out and just going in the water, just dropping out and extending in the water, and then just taking it out and extending it all the way to catch. And so here he's just going to drop out and go into the water from here. Okay. See, I'm trying to tell him now not to move his shoulder area, just to move his hands out, and the shoulder will come around, which is what Steve's got in his little thing on technique too. So I mean, you let your handle lead your body. You don't move your body out with your hand. That was better like that. So he just come out here and it sets it out and it's gone. I think the other thing that I mean, he's quite tall and long limbed, so it's quite reasonably easy for him anyway. But one of the things that he is sort of sitting here and doing that rather than sitting here and doing this, and it just makes for an easy way of getting length without looking like you're going for length when you're just sort of going for the point out over the rigging. He tends to grip his oar more than what I've been talking about, but as you see, you've seen, I think, enough of the other people who are not, to know that that's where people are heading for. So now from there, he just comes out and does the same thing, but he's in the water. So he just takes this one movement, and now just makes it into a full movement, so that his blade's going in just before his feet. So he gets this connection point quite easily by just doing that same idea, put the blade, and he's obviously got his foot connected at the same time. So I'm actually telling him to just a little bit of pressure off the foot stretch. Okay, so that's getting him in the water and timing those legs at the same point. Okay, so now we're going to bit of half slide here, just seeing if everybody can get their legs on at half slide. I think half slide or quarter slide even, or back and forth between half and quarter, is really good to see if people really have got their legs connected in that second half of the stroke. Because you see quite a lot of people, sometimes you get sucked in actually, you see some slides really going bang and you think, oh, that guy's really moving their legs well, but they might just be pushing a whole lot of foot stretch and not really moving the blade. So I'd be always really wary of really fast driving legs, because if there's water being held up against those legs, they're not going to move too fast, especially in the first part. Okay, so he's one who always has to pull at his handle, so it's quite, it's difficult for him to, but he's getting better at it, just getting on with his, using the legs back through that second half. So they're really looking to leg it and draw the arms, and it's only, as I say, off the short slide. So now just getting to speed the whole thing up, so. But in fact, I don't spend a whole lot of time on sort of exercise type things. I think it's important that you do some, but as I said earlier on, the basis of getting these things in place is to do the mileage with the idea, and getting long periods of time when you're just working into the type of movement that you're looking to get people to do. But I think this idea of being loose comes clear here, where they can be finished, but they can be moving because everything's pretty loose. He's a bit tight, so he still has this bit of a problem there. But basically, they can move quite comfortably because they're not putting tension to stiffness as they're coming forward and as they're going to the catch. They're a bit, I don't care if they're rushing at the moment. I just want them to get out and get in quickly, and then after that I can slow the slide down, or they can slow the slide down. So I'll tend to work to get something done. Say I want quickness, and then I'll move the slide slower. Okay, here's one we use quite a lot. Just coming up and moving off. So just come up, sit at the back, and move off again. And they get this feeling of yep there, and then just away and accelerate out. So they just find the right point that they're going to actually accelerate again. So they try and time this point, bang together. And so you get this feeling that now they pick up their oars and do the same thing. So just go and just try to do that same, just moving. So they just move, they don't care about where their blade is, they try, obviously we're trying to get everything geared up properly, but the most thing I'm interested in is getting the right movement from people. Instead of concentrating on making sure the catch is right, or whatever the way you want it, for me it's just more important that they move right, and you slot the blade in and into the movement that you're creating, rather than putting the catch right or whatever. So it's a bit more sort of a round and round movement. Okay. From this here, we've really got to break down the complex skills into simple parts. I don't know how complex they are. I said before, I mentioned gymnastics, and we've got nothing to do really. This is what people are coaching a lot of other sports we've got to do. I can't remember the number, but I don't know how many possibilities there are for golf shots. There's hundreds of them. But really, there's only sort of one basic thing we're doing, isn't it? So it's not as if we've got to be too complicated about everything. But anyway, to me, break down the skills into, I'd say, maybe it's complex, I wouldn't probably even bother about, but the skills are the simple parts. So for me, the simple parts are the sort of things I was trying to isolate here on the erg, and with some of the exercises that you saw there, I'll try to find out the simplest way to get the blade in water, and then the simplest way to get it out again and get your weight back on your feet. So to keep the whole thing, really simple, and as I said again in the last session, if people can do this, even if they're not strong, I've seen one of the things I've really noticed in New Zealand is because there weren't very many women rowing in Switzerland, but it's in New Zealand it's more women than men, I think, is that we have a lot of young girls' school crews that are going relatively fast without any power. They're just going around and making a good movement. And if you can teach people to make a good movement and a free, easy-going movement, I think you find that you've got them going fast. And once they're in the movement, okay, as they'll get better timed into that. They'll get more strength on the blade, and as they get older, they get stronger, and you'll end up with those people rowing, continuing to row in a good, easy movement, and getting faster and faster as they get stronger. So the thing you have to watch, I'm sure, is that as people get stronger, they don't try and row harder or tougher or whatever. I mean, they've got to just keep the efficiency of their stroke and the toughness in their heads, of course, when they want to go to race, or when they have to hold into some training pieces that you've got them doing it, which are reasonably tough. But basically, it's getting to row into a movement, putting the right emphasis in the right places. So separating out the good bits from the bad bits that people do. It's very easy to always be saying to somebody that you're not doing things the way you want them to. It's got to be really it's really important that you give people feedback especially when they're doing things well, because you often ask people to do something or suggest to people to do something, and then you don't say anything else anymore about it. I mean, they row along for another half an hour, and you come off the water and they say, "Oh, did we do that any better?" And you say, "Oh, yeah, you improved it." But I mean, you should say it immediately, because you've said change this or try this, and they've tried it, and you can see immediately that they have or they haven't, and you should say, you should give some information about that. You should say, yeah, that was, I can see that you're really trying to do something about this, but you need to do this or that or something else. And then as soon as they hit one, you say, hey, that was really good, that one you did. And then they might miss it and you say, remember back that one, two back, the one you got there, 2 or 3 behind, remember that one, and then hit it again, you say, right, you got it again. Now try and get it, each time, so that you must give people feedback as to how well they're doing in terms of if you like, answering your requests to, or presenting them suggestions that are going to help them to go faster. It's very easy to say, all the best crews, you can see a lot of people doing things that you could criticise. So it's really important that you don't just disregard those points, but if you focus more on the things that they do well, quite often those other things just disappear anyway in the meantime. And that's what I think, focus on the important parts, don't be distracted by the unimportant parts of whether somebody's got their fingers in the right place, or whether they really look the way you really want them to be, exactly the same, doing this and that. Everybody's body's different, everybody's different, and so you have to look and see how effective the person is, rather than if they're really sitting in the way that you want them to sit, or hold the oar, or whatever. I mean, there are some certain things, and you're not going to let a person keep rowing along with their hands together, obviously, when it doesn't give them much room. But you make requests to people that you feel are going to make a difference to what they're doing, and not just because you want it like that or you'd like to see it like this. And then you can focus on the best things. Obviously, if they've got their hands off, or basically their hands in a certain position, and that's allowing them to do something quite well, and then you change it because you'd like to see their hands somewhere different, and then they can't do the other skill. Well, you've gone from the important bit to the unimportant bit, and then you lose the progress. And don't be distracted by sort of things that could have a bearing, but aren't really the meat of the matter. Find a way to correct technique that is is a way that's going to get the right response from them. So some people don't need to, you don't have to explain anything to some people. They just want you to say, you know, what to do. You probably have to do quite a lot of how to do it, but you mightn't have to do too much of why, because a lot of people don't want to know why. They just want you to tell them, and they're happy if you can. Some of them do. Some people do want to know why, though. And in that case, then you need to be really honest. I'm often saying I don't know. I mean,